I'm Pete with Culinaria Cooking School in Vienna, Virginia, and today I'm here with Jim Tyndall, one of our assistants, and we're going to be doing beer bread. And it kind of goes right along with the classes that we're doing. We have a series called Beer Bites, cooking with beer and beer and food pairings. So I'm going to turn this over to Jim, and he's going to get started making some beer bread.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I've got 3 cups of all-purpose flour in the bowl. I'm going to add to that 1 cup of whole wheat, 2 teaspoons of salt, and a half a teaspoon of yeast. That's going to measure it out. And we're only using a half a teaspoon because this is going to ferment overnight, and that's all it takes. Just going to give this a little stir to mix everything up. In the measuring cup, I have 12 ounces of beer. You want to use something that's very flavorful. The more flavorful the beer, the better the bread will taste. Today I'm using an Oktoberfest. I also added 4 ounces of water and a tablespoon of honey. If you had a big bottle of beer and you wanted to do this all with beer, that would be fine. It's just 2 cups total. So I'm just going to mix everything together. This is going to make a very wet dough, but we don't need it, so it doesn't matter.
That's the nice thing about this beer bread is that you don't have to, it's a kind of a no-fuss bread. Mix it up, let it sit, and you're not kneading it and putting it in the KitchenAid and kneading it for a half an hour, kind of like my pizza dough.
And the proportions aren't quite as stringent as in some baking. There's a little bit of leeway here.
Now that really is a wet dough.
Yes. And all we really want to do is just make sure that all the flour gets incorporated.
And I can tell you from personal experience, this bread is really delicious. Jim's made this a number of times and brought it into the school. It disappears very quickly, and it makes some delicious sandwiches.
I keep trying different beers, trying to find what's the best one, and so far nobody can tell me because they seem to like them all. All right, all I'm going to do is scrape down the sides of the bowl.
You need a little plastic for that?
Yeah, we're going to cover this with plastic. And we're going to let this set out at room temperature for 10 to 14 hours. Very good. Okay, I started another batch last night so we would have one to work with today. You can see that it's risen up a little bit, but it's still pretty jiggly. I'll flour my work surface a little bit. We're going to scrape the dough out on the table. And now I'm using a bench scraper. I'm just going to turn this bread over on itself about 4 to 5 times. And if it gets a little sticky, I'm just going to put a little more flour on it. Okay, I'm just going to kind of shape it into a ball. And I'm going to place it in a 10-inch skillet lined with a piece of parchment paper. Just going to sprinkle a little more flour on top. I'm going to cover this loosely with plastic and let this rest for 2 hours. Okay, we'll let this bread rest now for about 2 hours. And the reason I put this in this 10-inch skillet, you see it's risen a little bit, this just kind of helps it holds its shape, because the stove is pretty jiggly. So now we're going to put it in the oven. We preheated the oven and the Dutch oven to 450 degrees. And the reason for the parchment paper is so we can pick this up.
And set it right in there.
Okay,
lid on.
Lid it back up. We're going to let this cook for 30 minutes. The bread's been in the oven now for 30 minutes. All we're going to do is open the oven and take the lid off and let it bake again for 15 more minutes. And remember, this lid is really hot.
Oh, that looks good, Jim.
So now we're in here for 15 minutes with the lid off. Now we're going to take the bread out and just put it on the rack.
Yeah, it smells good. Let's turn the timer off.
Just going to grab the parchment paper and see if I can lift it. Get the tongs underneath.
That's looking good. Let me get this out of your way here.
We're just going to let this sit on the rack for 15 minutes, and I'm going to turn the heat off. Okay, the bread's finished off in the oven for 15 minutes. We're going to take it out now. We're just going to let it sit on the cooling rack till it's a little bit cool, and we're going to cut it.
Okay, we've cooled the bread, and we're going to do a couple of slices. We've also made a compound butter with thyme and rosemary. We have a little sliced cheese, or some nice cured meats would be really good. And it's nice and crispy, still a little bit warm, but you can see really nice bubbles from the yeast forming. So let's give it a try here. And of course, for me, that's the best piece. Let's get a little, we got it right here. Get a knife here. Would you like butter on yours?
Sure.
Have a little taste there. So, and we also are drinking some beers today to go with this. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But
cheers.
Cheers. Here's to us. Check us out at culinariacookingschool.com and like us on Facebook. And we'll see you next time.